What a time. You know, we live in an extraordinary moment in history. We are witnessing, it must be, Dmitry Orlov was on our program a couple of years ago, wrote a great book. I think it's called Deconstructing Collapse or something about collapse. It was about the collapse of the Soviet Union. He was a Russian. He was there when the Soviet Union fell apart. Now lives in the United States. And he in fact, he has a blog, which I think is dmitryorlov.com. But, you know, what got me thinking about this is that, you know, he lived through and saw the collapse of the Soviet Union. We are living through and seeing the collapse of the American Union. I mean, it's really a remarkable thing. We are right in front of us. We are watching, well, for example, since the economic crash 6 years ago, in those 6 years, the United States has increased its net worth. In other words, this country has added $34 trillion in wealth. Now, you divide $34 trillion by the roughly 340 million Americans, and I'm talking not just, you know, people of working age, but literally every man, woman, and child in this country. And that's $100,000 per person. We have become, and this isn't government wealth, this is personal wealth. We've become $34 trillion richer since 2008. $100,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. Did you get your share of it? No? Well, that's because all of it went to the top 7% of Americans. Most of it went to the top 0.1% of Americans. That's not sustainable. This is not a sustainable system. Reaganomics, Hayek Austrian School economics, libertarian economics, Republican economics, austerity economics, sequesternomics, whatever you want to call it. Trickle-down economics, supply-side economics. It is all what George Herbert Walker Bush in the primaries to the 1980 election called voodoo economics. It's voodoo. I mean, it's not actually, voodoo has a long history and a good reputation among people who are familiar with it. You know, there are people who are scholars of voodoo. There are books written on voodoo. There are people who practice voodoo. There are people who believe in voodoo. There are people who you know, there's an actual epistemology to voodoo that has a certain amount of predictability associated with it. This economics isn't even voodoo. It gives voodoo a bad name. And we're still taking these people seriously? I mean, Paul Ryan is still going on national television programs and saying, oh, yeah, I think we need to voucherize Medicare. Sure, yeah, let's do that. Let's take that, you know, 2/3 of Americans over 65 who depend on Medicare and Social Security for 100% of their income and just tell them, here's $7,000. Good luck. Buy insurance. See you later. Don't get sick. If you do, die quick. What kind of fool would even put that stuff on the air, much less propose it? Now, Paul Ryan feels free to propose it because he knows it's never going to happen. First of all, the American people wouldn't stand for it. And secondly, the Democratic Party is going to prevent it. You know, it's just, there's always going to be enough Democrats someplace that, you know, but maybe he can whittle away at it a little bit more so that the taxes on the really rich can go down a little bit more, so that the taxes on the working people can go up a little bit more. Remember, I mean, one of the first things Reagan did when he became president was he doubled the payroll tax on people making less than $40,000 a year. It's now $117,000 a year, but he doubled that payroll tax. Meanwhile, he cut the top tax rate from 74% down to 18%. Was it 18%? No, it was 28%, excuse me. Down to 28%. It has crept back up to 39%. But as long as it's below 50%, we are going to have an unstable boom and bust economy. Now, why, you may say, would these people do this? Why would Steve Moore and Ronald Reagan and all these, George Will and these thoughtful conservatives, why would they advocate these kinds of, but Paul Ryan and John Boehner and Eric Cantor and Mitch McConnell, and, why? Well, there's two really simple answers. A, you've got some really cranky billionaires at the very top who the Supreme Court has basically put in charge of our political process, who are mentally ill. Now, I'm not saying all of them are. In fact, probably most of them are not. I know a couple of billionaires myself. I'm not good buddies with them, but I've met them. I know, it's like they're not crazy people. But there are a few who have obsessive compulsive disorder around their money. They are the people who, if they didn't have $1 billion, if their daddy hadn't been rich, or if they hadn't come up with a brilliant idea and invented something, they would instead have an apartment that is filled floor to ceiling with newspapers that you have to navigate through, and they'd be on TV in the Hoarder Show. Or they'd have 38 cats. This is a variation on obsessive compulsive disorder. It's called the hoarding syndrome, and what they're hoarding is money. And they will do anything to get more money. There's never enough. For hoarders, there is never enough. So A, you've got some people who are mentally ill, and they have enough money to buy politicians, and the politicians then have to dance to their tune. So that's part of it. And then the other part of it is the old-fashioned conservative, and now I'm talking about the real conservatives, the policy conservatives, the William F. Buckley conservatives, the Barry Goldwater conservatives, the Russell Kirk conservatives, the George Will conservatives, who ever since Sir Edmund Burke, since the American Revolution, have been telling us that having a healthy, unafraid middle class is a dangerous thing, because the middle class will always want more. So if you want to have a stable society, and the essence of the conservative philosophy is stability, if you want to have a stable society, you have to keep people in bondage. And the best way to do that is debt. Keep them poor, keep them struggling, and they will not rise up against you, and they will do what you want, and you can just, have your nice little luxury life, and everything will be fine. Charles Dickens' England is the natural state of an economy without government interference. And that's what these guys say they want, right? Rand Paul, we shouldn't have any government interference in the marketplace. Well, if you have no government interference in the marketplace, you are going to have no middle class whatsoever. You are going to have a very small class of very wealthy people at the top. You're going to have a very small class of middle class people who are professionals, the doctor, the lawyer, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the shop owners. And you're going to have a very large class of the working poor. Charles Dickens, England.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Just listen to their rhetoric. This is what they're calling for. This is why they don't want to extend unemployment benefits. God forbid, people might have a little money in their pocket.